Hey Dave, it is great
Ernesto,
to see you as usual. What's
absolutely.
up?
And it's always a pleasure to see you, my friend.
Same thing here. Well, right now it is April Fool's Day, and very honestly, I actually thought it would be awesome if you will wake up today and you will find out that all of what we have been living these past 3 weeks was all a joke. But of course, it was not the case. So that makes me not very happy. And
Yeah,
then
exactly.
just when we were here, just about to start the show, we received a April Fool's message that said that Governor Abbott, which is the governor of Texas, said that all kids had to repeat their school year right now, and that's what actually we told to the kids. Of course, it was an April Fool's joke, and they were in absolute shock until, of course, we said April's Fool. So, well, if we can just call it as that, happy April Fool's Day.
Absolutely. Well, we had the pleasure. My wife pulled a little trick on my daughter today and called her into the bedroom and said that the Pokemon Global Center has closed down. So all Pokemon is finished in every way, shape, or form for the rest of ever. My daughter was shocked and stormed out the room. We called her back in and said, April Fool. She closed the door, locked us in. And when she released us, to get out, we had to walk through the whole door being covered in sticky paper, sellotape. And then she said, because the dogs have been in the room with you, you should wash your hands. So I went to wash my hands and she'd stuffed paint, red paint, inside the tap. My daughter's 9. She's very vindictive. My wife said she's going to get us back. I said, no, she's too sweet. I'm really worried. I know nothing about my daughter. Nothing.
Oh my
So here we
God.
go.
Oh my God. Well, let's get started today with our episode, which is going to be on entrepreneurship during quarantine. And I think it is a very nice follow up from what we were doing yesterday, because we got this show started as real entrepreneurs on the spot. We said, what's the need? And while everybody was thinking, well, let's provide content, let's provide everything for free, let's provide, our content, our courses for free, we said, no, we need to create sort of like a news show where we are actually providing real news. And the results have been absolutely incredible. And one of the things that we are realizing is that we're getting more and more people which are doing this kind of news shows, and of course that makes us very happy because we were the ones that got things started. But what I wanted to talk about was the entrepreneurial spirit. Now, as you possibly know, Dave, I have been a trend hunter for a number of years. I've been I am very accurate in predicting how things are going to work. I mean, I would have never predicted that this was going to happen, but of course, I mean, I was never searching on it. And even there is a video from Bill Gates talking about this about 5 years ago. I never really paid attention to it. But anyway, what I think it's really my prediction for what's going to happen is that there's going to be a very strong growth on entrepreneurs. I think it is important that we actually start thinking like entrepreneurs, and we're going to be bringing you several entrepreneurs of and around the world just so that you can see what they are doing.
Absolutely. I was on a Zoom call this morning all about systems design and design thinking, hosted by a friend of mine, Howard Majaris, who hopefully will be one of our reporters in the future. And there's about 15 people on the Zoom call, and it was all about how to reinvent business and how to look at what worked before and look at the business models and how to change them around. Now, design thinkers are the people who, for instance, I mean, Howard was working for Emirates Airlines for many years. So he would work out the process of how you buy your ticket and how you end up with the same ticket going through the whole experience to finally end up on the plane and what happens after that. So every stage is measured. I know that you talked about KLM, who are experts at doing this as well. So that's the area that he is an expert in. And I think that when we start analyzing this, it's really fascinating because everybody has to start thinking about how they design their business and reinventing the way of going about it.
Yeah, that is very interesting, and I think I think today's show is going to be great. But before we go to that part of the show, let's just cover a little bit of the crazy news that we are getting. And a few episodes ago, we were actually talking about the we were talking about the uh, the spring breakers that were just basically having a lot of fun there in Mexico, and look at what is there right now. This was exactly about 10 12 days ago. 28 University of Texas spring breakers test positive for COVID-19 after a group trip to Mexico. Now you can see it. I mean, I still see some people saying, well, I mean, this is just a hoax, we're not taking this seriously, and look at this stupidity. And that's why it's incredibly important that we don't spread this unknowingly, because we know very well that by April 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th is going to be the worst part of it all. So we have to be very careful. How about on your side, Dave? Do you have any news?
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about that but in a moment. I want to just mention right now, as we should do in every episode, just to give thanks to all the many people who stick their neck out during the virus to make sure that we get access to food, medicine. The hospitals are open, the pharmacies, the supermarkets, the garbage cleaners, the police, firemen, all the essential services. These guys are going out and risking themselves all around the world, regardless of what we have to do is stay indoors and behave, but they do an incredible job. I was reading about the cruise ships, various cruise ships that are not allowed into port because they've got some people that are positive who are not allowed to come in. So I don't know how they're getting their food, how they're getting their supplies, but needless to say, if you're in we've been on cruises together. If you're on that kind of environment, there's nowhere to hide, even in a cabin. The cabins are tiny. I mean, you can't say how small these places are, so that's a bit of a challenge. Talking about that, we were chatting yesterday, some very good friends of ours who've since left Dubai and are living in the UK. And husband and wife with a couple of kids that used to play with Maya were very close. And they believe that they've got the coronavirus. They've been in quarantine for about a week and a half now. The wife's got over it. She had a nasty cough for quite some time. The husband's still got a bit of a chesty, throaty cough, but he's getting over it. And they're still in quarantine, not going out. And it just goes to show that the levels of coronavirus that people can get are different. It's not that if you get it, you will die straight away. There is a risk to everybody, but it doesn't mean that necessarily because you have it, you won't just get mild symptoms. And then, as Anthony Fauci is saying, you may well be immune after you've caught it and got over it once. But one thing that was very scary yesterday reading in the news is Belgium had its first child that passed at the age of 12. So wow. Anybody who's under the illusion that if you're at a certain age, you should be safe, your immune system is better the younger you are, but it doesn't mean that you should allow yourself to expose to it. Everybody should still stay safe regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting here some breaking news from Jess Smith in the UK, which is telling us that yesterday there were 563 deaths in the last 24 hours. Thank you, Jeff, for keeping us informed of that. So absolutely, we should not be taking this lightly. We are getting into, as I was showing yesterday on the graph, we're getting into the peak in the next few days. So it is really important that we are taking this seriously.
And just what you mentioned there about the spring breakers, I mean, it's one thing to have a choice about what you're doing to yourself. It's another thing to inflict on other people. But think about the extreme dangers you're adding on top of the care workers who are there to try and keep everyone safe. You're making it even harder for them just because you're enjoying yourself and saying, I don't like this lifestyle. So it's not just about us. It's about everybody, making sure you stick together so everybody gets a chance to survive this.
Fantastic. So, Dave, you asked me to share those two pictures. You can possibly describe what's going on there.
Yeah, I can do. Here's the thing. I mean, you can see on the right-hand side with the cartoons of people, that's actually that's Italy. And as you may be aware, Italy is one of the worst hit places on the planet. purely because it took such a long time for them to actually get quarantine into people's heads and get them to realize that there is a real danger. You've got to do something about it. If you don't do something about it, then it will come back and bite you. And so what I wanted to do is mention, not, I mean, I don't need to go about Italy. Everyone's very aware, and I've got a lot of Italian friends who have family back home, so I don't want to labor the point. But I do want to say about some of the responses that are weird and wonderful from around the world, as whilst we're all living in quarantine. In Panama, they've got a strange way of dealing with it, which is that they're allowing people out of quarantine for a couple of hours only by gender. So one day is a men's day, another day is a women's day, and they're under the impression that by doing it like that, when people get out, they won't spend so much time talking to each other because girls only like talking to boys and vice versa. I have a feeling that the Women's Day might be slightly different, but I'm not going to labor that point. In Colombia, they're going along a similar route, but using their national ID numbers. So if you've got a number 0 or a number 1 or a number 2, there's certain days you're allowed to go out, and other days you can't go out, but other people are. So that allows the police to check your national ID to make sure you're using the right days to go out. I think that's just to basically break curfew. I don't think it means you got a full day of shopping and go to a cinema. In Serbia, they used to have a dog walking hour, and they've scrapped that. I mean, it's a challenge for me and my 2 big dogs, who they have not been out for a walk now for about 6 days. And so we're just kind of like letting them stir, if you can say that. And so it was between 8 and 9, and it was great for everybody, but then they stopped it. And so everyone's complaining about it for obvious reasons. In Belarus, the president, Lukashenko, is in denial. He's telling everybody it's not true. He said it can't be a virus. I haven't seen it. And he says it's far too cold in our country for it to happen. So as a result, things like ice hockey and all the other sporting events are still going ahead. He says to everybody, drink vodka and go to saunas and you will be okay. So, I mean, I can't even tell you what I think of that. It's just utterly irresponsible. And again, without the politics coming in, it's so bad for what's going to happen to the rest of the country as a result of not letting people at least make their own choice, because it all comes from the top. Okay, moving on to Sweden. Sweden's got 4,500 cases. They're pretty much trusting people to make their own decisions. Schools are still open, but there's no gatherings over 50 people allowed anywhere. And as I mentioned before, Sweden's got a huge population. 50% of Swedish people live on their own and they're young, and so they would go into natural isolation without thinking about it anyway. And they are slightly removed when it comes to being social. I don't mean the horrible thing about Swedish people at all, but they're quite used to having their own space, and they say that that cultural thing allows them to be probably more protected than many other countries because it's built into the system of the people. In Malaysia, a really strange one, they posted some cartoons telling women to dress up and wear makeup and don't nag your husband because he's going to be stressed because of a lack of working hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and needless to say, there are a few complaints made and those posters disappeared shortly after. Really? Really? In Turkmenistan, again, they've actually gone to the worst extreme, in my opinion. They've banned the word coronavirus. You can be punished for using the word coronavirus. You'll be punished for wearing a face mask in public. And they just won't allow anybody to talk about it. Now, here's the weirdest thing about Turkmenistan. If you look it up on the globe, you'll find out for yourself. It's right next to Iran, which is one of the worst hit countries. So, again, being in denial because you haven't thought about it properly, it's not a good thing. And lastly, Austria, where they're very strong on pushing for masks. So if you go out to any supermarket or so on, you've got to have your masks on as well. So well done to Austria for thinking about it like that. That's some of the crazy stories. I know there'll be lots of places, as we mentioned yesterday, like Mexico, where there's lots of challenges for the people. And I mean, we avoid all politics, to be honest with you. I'm not mentioning countries because I want to talk about leaders. I'm talking about the countries because I feel for all the people of the countries, because you should be at home and you should be locked in and you should be looking after everybody else at the same time.
Oh my God, this is absolutely insane. We're really going, we're really going crazy in this place. You know what? This actually makes me think of the only time in my school years that I had a speaker. He was not even a teacher. I mean, he was just somebody that came for an hour, hour and a half to talk to us about entrepreneurship. I mean, we always we're trained, as Robert Kiyosaki says, we were always taught to be employees. However, this one time we had somebody that was talking about entrepreneurship, and during that specific talk, and I still remember, and I mean, we're talking about this was what 35 years ago or something like that, possibly more, 37 years ago, and he was mentioning something which I still remember until this day. Just imagine that what if there will be no companies? What will happen if you will not be able to have a shop? What will happen if you will not be able to have a restaurant? What will happen, or what if you will not be able to have a restaurant? Not what will happen, but what if you wouldn't have this? What if you wouldn't have that? And today I was actually thinking, well, we are right now on that what if. And I believe very strongly that there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurs coming out of this crisis, because, of course, I mean, you have to think in a complete different way. So I think right now, this is the exact time to start chasing your what ifs. It's very, very important. I have another very nice slide here that mentions the following: what if I fall? Which is right now a time where people are saying, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Oh my goodness. Well, no, darling, what if you can fly? And this is the spirit of entrepreneurship. And this is the reason why I would like to bring to us a lot of entrepreneurs, because we are connected with many entrepreneurs around the world. And the moment that we told them what we were doing, everybody was really excited, and they started sharing their reports on entrepreneurship, and that, I think, it's just absolutely great. I really enjoy it, and I would like you guys to, if you want to be one of our reporters, if you're an entrepreneur and you are watching the show, make sure to go to bit.ly.neveralonetribe. So Dave, what do you think of this take of entrepreneurship? And also, you can explain a little bit about the Never Alone Tribe.
Yeah, the Never Alone Tribe. If anybody watched this show yesterday, we had some incredible speakers, famous celebrities, and well-known speakers from all around the world sharing their insights with us. And we really want to champion just connecting with people. So you have physical distancing, the social connection. So get connecting to people, make phone calls, do videos, do whatever it takes, let people know that they're not on their own. It's a beautiful thing, and it's really important that we do it. But I wanted to also talk about what you said about chasing what ifs, for two reasons. First of all, it's nice that you remember the speaker, because you don't remember who he was or what he does. But remember, as we're professional speakers, we travel around the world, we're having that impression on people as we go. They might not remember who we are, but they remember how it made them feel, which is ultimately what keeps me in the industry and makes me love doing what I do. But there's a thing that I wanted to share, and that's called assumption reversal, which is a fascinating article I read on the BBC website the other day. And what it is, and it's a really important thing for anybody who wants to address reinventing their business for what's going to happen after the virus has passed. The idea is that there's so many statements that are just a common way of describing a business in one sentence. But supposing you gave a negative version of it and started rebuilding the business with that. Let me explain. So first of all, let's take one that restaurants have menus. We all know you go into a restaurant, the chef's got a menu that is created, that's there, and you pick the food you want. But supposing you went into a restaurant that had no menu, and instead what you had was that the chef is going to tell you what he's going to cook for you. He's got a number of ingredients, and as you sit down, there's going to be a surprise, but you know it's a good chef, and you know it's going to be interesting. That puts a whole new spin on it. Let's take it again to look at something that we'll all appreciate. Take the idea that taxi companies have cars. That's the way it's always been until Uber came along, created a new business model, and suddenly became one of the biggest companies on the planet as a direct result of reinventing the way that they scale and the way that they connect with people. Let's take another one, because this is one of the things that's going to be so fascinating as to what happens. And that's education is about imparting knowledge. Our business end of education has always been about filling the kids with as much as they can do, and then let them get through some exams and tests that are brutal and cruel and will basically give them stigma for the rest of their lives. And I don't mind saying this because I just do believe it's true. And now what we have is a situation where it's all being knocked on its head. Let me just explain that. Education is about imparting knowledge. Supposing education was not about imparting knowledge, education was about throwing them out there and getting them to work it out for themselves. Let's give you an example. So instead of learning all these facts, you throw them out in the middle of the classroom and say, okay, here's the situation. How would you deal with this? And they go, okay, let me work it out. And you play that kind of game so people can interpret and they can also work it out as they go. And so with this, I think we're going to see a lot of businesses that change, especially in education, as more people are homeschooling than ever before. If I was in education now, I'd be looking at the new model, which would probably include dropping the prices of the premises, as many restaurants are going to do, and start thinking about how you can let people do homeschooling at a budget, but one that fits for everybody. And maybe what you do is you supply extracurricular activities when it's all over, because that's a better business model, because people will be able to do it cheaper at home than paying for private education.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Very interesting, Dave. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are getting a call right now from one of our reporters. Right now,
Hey.
Simone is there with is there all the way from sunny California. So let me just say hello, Chantel.
From sunny California, where we are here on full lockdown. The state is completely shut down. People are still getting out, as you can see, doing their best to be active, yet keeping their social distance. It is funny because as you're walking down the streets, people are dodging you left, right, and center. People are forgetting to even be courteous and say hello. But you know, at the end of the day, here there's police that are on the streets in the evening time. We have a curfew to make sure that we stay in the house in the evening. It has been one serious state of the nation. But nonetheless, we want people to take this virus seriously so we can end it and move on with the next chapter in our lives. So this is the state of the nation in sunny California. We're out, we're about, we're doing the best that we can given our times and keeping our distance. Well, that's it for me, and back to you, back to the studio.
Fantastic. One of our favorite people on the planet, Chantal. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah,
our mindologist from California.
Absolutely amazing lady. You have to connect with her. She's how does she call herself? Mindologist.
Mindologist. We'll let her explain that on the show at some point in the future.
That is correct, and we're getting more people coming up right now for calls, and we're getting one of our favorite reporters. He's been one of the most supportive reporters that we have had. He's been really sending us reports almost every single day, and that is the amazing Michael Dietrich. So
Michael Dietrich.
He's there. So
he's a big TV star in Holland. On a program, is it called 100 to 1, where he's just a standout. Everybody loves him, and he's just become this global star, and we love him to bits. Michael, how's it going? See the haircut.
Hello, Michael. He actually cut his beard, so let's go with Michael.
Dietrich, coming to you live from the Netherlands. I'm really enjoying what you're doing, and it's been my pleasure to be a guest correspondent for you guys. I believe this is my 4th time in your show. Some of your viewers may recognize me, or maybe not, now that I've shaved 10 years off my life. For those of you that don't know me, I moved to the Netherlands in 1993. I was going to be here for 6 months, and that was more than 27 years ago. While here, I have become the corporate improv guru. I use improvisation to help businesses work better together. You can see that there's structure, but there's also great freedom in that structure. And I use improvisation to reach goals like team building, fluid leadership, innovative thinking, and I help public speakers become better public speakers. My tips today have to do with the idea of improvisation, that there's freedom, even though there's a structure to that freedom. So tip number 1 has to do with structure. Right now, if you've got kids, you may be going crazy trying to work at home. My suggestion is make a schedule just like they have in school. Kids respond well when they know what they're going to be doing at any given time. At school, you know, they've got math, and then they've got history, they've got recess. Plan your days that way, and kids will respond knowing what's expected of them. Everything from, recess, lunch, everything. Schedule it out and they'll know what's expected. On the other side of that, talking about improv, right now, to alleviate the boredom of your kids, it's not about iPads and batteries. It's about really open-ended fun, things that give them freedom. So things like, dolls and cars, and especially like Legos and blocks or drawing, something that doesn't have an end. Give them open-ended fun, and, put them in charge of their own play, and play along if you're invited. Back to you guys in the studio. If you want to follow me, I'm Michael Dieterich on Facebook, and M. Dieterich NL, that's for Netherlands. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Michael. Just wondering, how bored do you have to be to shave off your beard? I'm not ready for it yet. See, look at that. It looks beautiful.
That's very cool. Always Michael with great advice. By the way, Michael is a super TV star in the Netherlands, and we are so privileged of actually having him right now reporting directly to us. And the tips that he was sharing on improv are just great because, of course, that will serve to every entrepreneur at home. Let me see who else we have right now here waiting for us. Oh my goodness, we have all the way from Denver, Colorado. We have another superstar coming up, Mr. Joel Com.
Joel Com, superstar.
Phenomenal. So let me just, hey Joel, how are you? Tell us what's up there in Colorado.
Here in Denver, Colorado.
Hello, Joel.
Hope you guys are staying safe over there. We are
not seen Joel for ages,
like everybody else, but
had some good fun in Dubai when he came over before his
my
missus. It was very cool.
Here, this is where I am when I'm not on the road traveling, and since I'm not on the road traveling, I'm hunkered and bunkered here. You can see the mountains out there. Beautiful day here in Denver, absolutely. Anyway, I am taking the opportunity to do a couple things. One, I am selling a lot of the things that I've kept around for a long time on eBay and on Amazon, and I'm actually making a lot of money doing that, decluttering. But more importantly, you guys both know that I'm in the cryptocurrency space, and I co-host one of the top crypto podcasts with Travis Wright. It's called the Bad Crypto Podcast. And we are putting on a virtual event called Virtual Blockchain Week. You could actually go to virtualblockchainweek.com the last week of April. And we've got some of the biggest names in crypto and blockchain that are going to be joining us for the most ambitious event of its kind. It's really going to be amazing. Anyhow, things are good and staying healthy here, enjoying the Denver sunshine and still getting out for my walk every day. Just trying to keep 6 feet or more away from other people so that I don't catch this thing like some others are. All is well. You guys keep doing good stuff. Now back to you.
I think it's really cool. I always admire Joel because he's always ahead of the curve, don't you think?
How big is his house? If he's on the roof of his house, how many stories has he got in his house? He's making too much money. Amazing. But we love Joel. He's fantastic, and he's always great for catching up. And he's been he's been one of the top marketers on the internet for how many years? 15, 20 years? Really?
Oh, I think 1983. He's one of the first names that I ever heard of the internet. I mean, he's Twitter Power, and then AdSense Code. He wrote. He's a multiple New York Times best-selling author. He's an absolute celebrity, and we're also feeling incredibly grateful that he is joining us. So, some of our reporters, and we have.
This is a gift given by Joel, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
This is the gift that Joel gave me. Last time I saw it.
From Joel Com. Yeah, that's very sweet. And now let's bring all the way from the south of Germany, Catherine, which is an environmentalist, and I think that's another take that we have not really considered until now. So let me just see if Catherine is ready.
Catherine Ganolka from Germany. Fantastic. Where is she? Hello,
Catherine,
Catherine.
And thanks for having me on this show. I'm here in the very southern part of Germany, in the beautiful Bavarian Alps, and I'm very blessed to be here surrounded by mountains and nature. And just to give you a little bit of an update of what's happening here, I think we have the same restrictions as everyone else in the world now. We are trying to stay at home as much as possible, only going out if we have to go to work or do our groceries, no gatherings allowed, and we are only staying with family. And I think it starts paying off, and the number of new infections are slightly going down. So please, everyone, support and stay at home and help our healthcare workers in getting this under control. While we are getting a lot of negative news, obviously, at the moment, I want to focus on something which is definitely positive, and that's the impact this crisis has on our environment. As we're all in lockdown and there are no flights happening and traffic is really, really low, we are seeing very low emissions. The skies are clearing up, rivers are clearing up, and we see all of a sudden wildlife in areas we haven't seen in a very long time. So I think that's a very good thing to happen, and we should use this time and thinking what we can do to keep this trend even after the crisis. Our planet needs some help, so why not using this time and coming up with some ideas and making new habits? So, for example, you could decide on planting some trees. You could decide to carpool more often in the future when you go back to work, or cycle more, walk more, do your groceries only once a week, or doing some other things like getting rid of all your single-use plastic. It's definitely worth for our environment and worth for our own health. So that's it from me. Thank you for tuning in, and I wish you all the best. Please stay home, stay safe, stay healthy, and back to you in the studios. Bye.
great take on the which is a topic that we never really discuss. I mean, how the impact of stopping the entire world has created to the environment. And I think that also that's something that I can possibly predict. There's going to be a point that we're going to say, well, if we stop everything for a little bit, things are going to start actually becoming better.
Well, I think one of the things that's true as well, Ernesto, is we're going to have different value systems at the end of this. Remember, right up until this point, it was all about money, 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 me, money, money, money. And I think that what this will force people to do is they'll start to realize that money is important, but it's not the only thing. Friendship, connection, better quality of life, making sure that we don't have this happen again by being closer to other countries, and also maybe looking after the environment a little bit better. I think these will be spin-offs that will carry a lot more weight. I've known Catherine for a long time, and she's been on the case for a long time. And I hope that this helps her with the cause that we should all be adopting about making a better planet.
That is correct. And we're running out of time, but I still have John Briggs waiting right now to give us his update. And John, I feel honored and privileged to actually have him here as one of our reporters in the Toilet Paper Diaries, because he is a celebrity in the UK. And Dave, you can also quickly tell them some other stuff that he has done.
Yeah, I mean, he's a TV and radio personality and celebrity. He's also got a brilliant agency that produces adverts and campaigns and stuff like that. But if you get your phone out and you check out the voice of Siri and you turn it to the English male version of Siri, that's John Briggs. So if you want to have a conversation with John without knowing his contact details, just talk to Siri and he'll talk back to you. It's fascinating. I've spent a lot of time with John. I love him to bits, but it's kind of spooky when you've got your phone and he's not there. So I would love to. What's he up to? Are you there, John?
Yeah. Okay, John, are you ready? Yeah, there comes John. And
part of the home counties of the UK. So working in this new world is quite an interesting place to be, not least because I'm given the opportunity of not shaving and seeing what results, for which you'll have to forgive me. This is how we roll these days. Now, working alone isn't that unusual for people in my line of work. However, as voiceovers are used to working on their own, and I should add that voice work is only one of the things, one of my hats, and I've spent many years working in newsrooms as a presenter and broadcast journalist with other colleagues, and you bounce ideas off them, you talk through scripts and so on, and of course, any form of TV or radio involves teamwork. Television especially, where, well, you can't really do anything without 15 people or more. Radio is a bit more personal and is much more direct to your audience. So again, that's quite a solo activity. And I always say radio is the only job you can do where you sit and talk to yourself for 3 hours and you don't get put away. Now, voiceover is very singular. So working on our own in little studios like this one here, which is mine. This is my studio booth. This is very common. Maybe it's something to do with keeping our egos in check. So while I'm listening to other colleagues who are finding it difficult to be disciplined at home and missing their colleagues as well, as someone who regularly works on their own and at home, the advice I give is to ensure that you work in one room, away from the rest of the household if at all possible, maybe even a garden shed. Because there's still a requirement to actually go to work and leave work. If it is part of your home environment, you can consistently drop in and drop out of it, and your work will be far less efficient as a result. And you'll be easily interrupted, easily distracted. And you'll find yourself making more cups of tea than normal. You'll find yourself opening the fridge door and staring at it for quite some time. So resist the urge, if at all possible, and add something new to your daily workload. Start a piece of research on something to learn, perhaps, that you've never done before. There are some brilliant online courses that cost really very little. So when we get back to normality, which we will do, you'll be even better prepared to make an even greater impact on the world around you and be even more successful in the PC or post-COVID-19 world. I'm just going to go and stare at my fridge for the 5th time this morning. And as we always used to say back in the day of any report, John Briggs for the Toilet Paper Diaries in Buckinghamshire. Back to you in the studio.
Buckinghamshire. Back to you in the studio.
Absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant. And I was just going to say that his sound studio looks like what all the people would be doing with their toilet paper if they wanted to create a place where they could do recordings. It was everywhere. I know it wasn't toilet paper, but it looked a bit like it. So that's John Briggs, top guy, one of our correspondents and friends of the show, and hope he's staying safe and making lots of money in the UK as well.
That's awesome. So just before we close the show, make sure to connect with me here in Ernesto.today, just over here. That's not a website talking about me. Those are my contact details. I mean, you have my WhatsApp, you have my Messenger, even my personal phone. And please connect with me. I would love to help you, or I would love to also hear from you if you would like to be a reporter. And if you would like to connect with Dave, do the same thing. Go to thedavecrane.com. That's not a website talking about him. Those are his contact details. And now, Dave, over to you so that we can close the show.
Well, it's been a complete pleasure, as always, spending quality time with you, Ernesto. I see more of you than I see any other human being, probably including my family, which is not a bad thing, but it's kind of a bit creepy now. Make sure that you connect with us on the website, www.bit.ly, Never Alone Tribe. Our hashtag is hashtag Never Alone Tribe. This is all about our ability to connect with people who are on their own, who are feeling the pinch, feeling it being difficult. We want to let everyone know that wherever they are in the world, they are a global community, and we really want to make sure that they feel that we're with them as well. Share this show, connect, comment, send us questions. We'd love to have your feedback, and most of all, stay safe. We'll be back same time tomorrow, and we'll be here with you every single day until we're all clear from the other side of this. Ernesto, take care. Great to see you, my friend, and everybody else, see you soon.